Chapter 1. Shocking statement when 26 countries line up for Ukraine. On September 5, 2025, French President Emmanuel Macron affirmed that there are 26 countries ready to stand up to ensure post-war security for Ukraine. At first glance, this statement may seem like a salted and spiced diplomatic statement, but if we look closely at the military map of Europe and Eastern Europe, we will see that this is a turning point that can change the situation of war and the world's security. 1. Why 26 countries? The number 26 is not random. It roughly corresponds to the number of members in the European Union and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, willing to give the green light. But more remarkably, according to Macron, not only rich Western European countries, but also some countries in Eastern Europe, Russia's next-door neighbors, have agreed to participate. This is like having a child being bullied in class, and suddenly the other 26 children in the class say, "Okay, after you beat him up, we will stand by and protect him." This situation is no longer a bilateral conflict between Russia and Ukraine, but is gradually becoming a collective security problem for the whole of Europe. 2. Background: Ukraine and the unresolved war. The war from 2022 to 2025 has turned Ukraine into a giant weapons testing ground. The current war map shows: East, Russia still controls most of Donetsk and Luhansk. South, the Crimea issue is still an unresolved fishbone in the throat. North, Northeast, Kharkiv, Kupiansk, Siversk, Mirnograd are still places of intense fighting. So, in the context of the post-war that has not yet arrived, Macron launched the message: 26 countries will ensure post-war security for Ukraine. This is both a political psychological blow aimed at Russia and a message to strengthen the confidence of the Ukrainian people. You are not abandoned. 3. Strategic significance of the statement. For Ukraine, this is a vote of confidence, showing that although the war continues, the West has prepared a plan B to help Ukraine recover from the bombs and bullets. For Russia, the statement is like a message. Even if Mr. Putin ends the military campaign, he will never be allowed to have a vulnerable Ukraine for him to return to a second time. For the world, this is a signal that the collective security model is being expanded not only within NATO, but also into NATO+. Chapter 2. 26 countries. What can they do for post-war Ukraine? Now, imagine, what can these 26 countries do if they take action? The story is not simply about standing guard at the border. It can range from military to economic to psychological and social. 1. Military map and layers of protection. If we open the Eastern Europe defense map, we see that Ukraine lies like a shield between Russia and NATO. After the war, the biggest risk is not only that Russia will return to attack, but also internal instability, terrorism, and political division. Military experts analyze that 26 countries can participate in 3 security rings. Outer ring. NATO places air defense and missile bases in Poland, Romania, Slovakia, and Hungary. This will be the Iron Ring. Middle curl. Peacekeeping forces can be deployed directly in eastern Ukraine, such as in Donetsk and Luhansk, to prevent a resurgence of fighting. Inner curl. Security advisors, training of the Ukrainian army, modern weapons, but under the banner of international security. For example, if Russia wants to try the old trick of attacking Kharkiv again, they will have to consider that behind the Ukrainian army, there are at least 25 other countries ready to push the response button. 2. Economic and social security. It is impossible to forget that security is not just tanks and planes. A country devastated by bombs and bullets needs money to rebuild bridges, roads, hospitals, schools. European countries can set up a Ukraine reconstruction fund worth hundreds of billions of US dollars, similar to the Marshall Plan after World War II. Imagine Kyiv in 2030 might have a Macron Central Station, an Olaf Scholz Bridge, or a Biden Academy. It sounds funny, but history has shown that aid projects always have a political footprint. 3. Psychological and political deterrence. Beyond guns, the presence of 26 countries also has a psychological meaning.
sending a message to Russia that Cold War 2.0 is right at the door. And for the Ukrainian people, it is the belief that Europe has not abandoned them. A former NATO general commented sarcastically, "These 26 countries don't need to fire a single bullet. They just show up, hang their flags, and the enemy feels surrounded." Chapter 3. Consequences, Opportunities, and Lessons from History. 1. If the promise comes true. When the war ends, Ukraine will be guaranteed by 26 countries, which will turn this country into a Europe's eastern fortress. Russia will have little chance to come back again. This is similar to how West Germany after World War II became a solid NATO stronghold against the Soviet Union. 2. Potential risks. However, having 26 countries doesn't mean everything will go smoothly. The question is, who will pay for the cost of long-term peacekeeping? Will Western countries persevere for 10 years, 20 years, or will they get discouraged like when they withdrew from Afghanistan? How will Russia react? Will Moscow see this as a siege and open a new conflict? 3. Lessons from history. Looking back at the past, we see that many security guarantee models have failed, such as the Treaty of Versailles after World War I. Without real determination, 26 countries guaranteeing security for Ukraine will just be a beautiful slogan on paper. On the contrary, if implemented like the Marshall Plan, Ukraine can become a success story, recreating the miracle of revival like Japan and Germany after 1945. Conclusion. Message for History and War viewers. Ukraine is not just the story of a small country. It is the historical test of the 21st century. Can a collective of 26 countries ensure that a nation, once engulfed in bombs and bullets, can emerge safely into the light? And as always, we, those who love history and war, need to recognize that seemingly dry diplomatic decisions have the power to change the fate of millions of people. Final summary. President Macron of France announced that 26 countries are ready to guarantee post-war security for Ukraine. This is a strategic promise intended to deter Russia, strengthen Ukraine's spirit, and open up a new model of collective security. If successful, Ukraine could become a stronghold in Eastern Europe. If fails, it will be another painful lesson in the impatience of the West. History will judge, but we can foresee that this decision will shape European security for at least several decades. And if you want to continue with History and War to explore historical events, analyze wars and international diplomacy with a straightforward, profound, and humorous perspective, then like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next episodes.